Well, good morning. First and foremost, let me say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us here today on this important day. This is an important day for Wise County. This is an important day for the family of Gary Short. And so we appreciate you all being here. The homicide of Gary Russell Short, Sr. has been called Wise County's only unsolved murder. For 28 years, countless investigators have spent countless hours in the search for truth. And they pursued this case vigorously without finality for all these years. And that's why we're here today. The family of Gary Short has waited 28 years for closure, for healing, and for justice. I'm honored to be here with the family today. Many of them are here, some couldn't be here, and we're so thrilled to have specifically with us Rose Balthus, who's the widow of Gary Short. We're also thrilled to have his kids, daughter Teresa Connell and son Rusty Short, and their families. Today's an important day for this family, but it's also an important day for the various law enforcement officers who've worked tirelessly throughout the years to pursue justice in this case and to diligently seek truth in who killed Gary Short. Many of those folks are with us here today. We want to thank them for their time and for their efforts in this case. Wise County Sheriff Ronnie Oakes has worked for decades on this particular case with a talented group of investigators and officers and deputies who've pored over files, who've interviewed witnesses time and time again, who've reviewed the evidence and carried around dusty boxes. I appreciate the resources and the efforts that Sheriff Oakes has dedicated to this case throughout these years. Unfortunately, Sheriff Oakes couldn't be with us here today. He deeply regrets that he can't be here and sends his regrets as well. You're going to hear in just a few moments from Major Grant Kilgore, who will bring you a message from Sheriff Oakes. This case was investigated by numerous officers, and deputies and investigators from the Wise County Sheriff's Office throughout the years, and also agents from the Virginia State Police. And we're honored to be joined by just a few of these guys behind us who have spent a considerable amount of their lives investigating the case. And I'd be remiss if I started naming every single one of them because I'd leave somebody out. But they are here with us today because they're part of this family. They've put their lives into this case, and we want to thank them for joining us. And also I'm joined by a couple members of our prosecution team today. Ken Lammers and Josh Newberry, who are deputy Commonwealth's attorneys in my office, have worked hard on this case since January and before to find the truth. As you all know, when I took office, I promised to dedicate a significant number of resources in our office to focus on this particular case. And we've done that. We couldn't have done it without the help and the investigation and the hard work of prior Commonwealth's attorneys who've also dedicated a significant number of hours to this case as well. Their efforts have led us to this point today. Specifically, I want to talk about the efforts made by Commonwealth's attorney Ron Elkins, who in 2009 requested a special grand jury to investigate this particular case, the homicide of Gary Short. That special grand jury made no findings, issued no indictments, and closed their work. But Ron Elkins wasn't satisfied with just that. In 2012, he requested another special grand jury, and that special grand jury continued the investigation for years, continued to look into this matter and investigate and interview countless witnesses. We've reviewed those transcripts, and along the way found findings issued by that special grand jury. January 8th of 2014, that special grand jury issued a one-page written finding that on the second page was signed by the members of this special grand jury. Pursuant to Virginia law, those findings remained sealed. They couldn't be released to the public, not available for public inspection, until now. Earlier this year, the family of Gary Short approached me and our office with the request that we unseal those findings. While reviewing the case and the voluminous records and evidence, our team had the more important job of speaking to the family of Gary Short and getting to know them. And earlier today, Teresa said that basically I've become a part of the family, and I'm so honored by that. They've become a part of my family throughout this process, and I'm very thankful that they're here with us. I've gotten to know them, and I cannot imagine the unspeakable tragedy and personal loss and grief that they've gone through throughout these 28 years. They long for justice, but more importantly, they long for closure. After hearing their wishes, we filed a motion in the Wise County Circuit Court to unseal those findings from the special grand jury. And on Friday, we're pleased to announce that Judge Jeffrey Hamilton, Wise County Circuit Court, granted our motion and ordered the release of these findings pursuant to Virginia law and in accordance with the wishes of the family. The findings of the special grand jury from 2012 issued 2014 have until now never been made public. And so now for the first time, I'm honored to present you with these findings and to also discuss the evidence that supports the findings according to our review. Here's what we know. On May 20th, 1988, Gary Russell Short Sr. was killed in a remote part of Wise County in an area commonly known as Glady Fork, near Pound, from a gunshot wound. There's speculation that it was a hunting accident. But the Wise County Grand Jury found specifically that this was a homicide and not a hunting accident. The grand jury also implicated two individuals and specifically named these individuals in their findings. The first is a man named Roger Fane Mullins. The grand jury in its findings specifically said that Roger Mullins was complicit or an accomplice to this murder. And the facts of this case, as we understand them, support this finding. The facts say that Roger Mullins was a brother-in-law to Gary Short. Mullins owned property near the Glady Fork section of Pound where Gary's body was found. Before that, the Short family became fearful of Mullins because of some disturbing comments that he made to Short's daughter about something happening to Gary. Before the murder, Roger Mullins purchased a shotgun, the very same type of weapon that was used to commit this crime. On the day of the murder, Short was supposed to help Roger Mullins paint a boat. They were friends. However, despite clear skies, Mullins canceled, saying that there was bad weather. Instead, Mullins discussed with Short about checking into their common interest of fishing. According to Mullins, Short checked on places to store minnows on the day of the murder. Before the murder, Mullins was seen by a witness in the Glady Fork section of Pound where the murder happened, and the same location where these fishing ponds were supposed to be located. After the murder, a short time later, Roger Mullins was seen at a home of a witness. That witness reports that Mullins appeared suspicious and nervous despite being at that location many times previously. That witness said that Mullins said that he was coming there to check on a vehicle, but upon arriving at the location, never mentioned the vehicle again, but instead asked and inquired about Gary and his family. Gary Short's wife, Rose, became concerned on the day when she hadn't heard from Gary. He was supposed to pick her up. He was always punctual. Inexplicably, Roger Mullins appeared at her workplace, picked her up, and offered to go look for Gary. After others, many who were working on the case, became involved in the search, Roger Mullins attempted to lead the search party to a location away from where the body eventually was found. A police tracking dog trained to locate the scent of individuals actually did locate the scent of another individual other than the victim at the crime scene. That dog tracked the scent of that other individual through the woods all the way to the doorstep of Roger Mullins. Now, it's important to note that that was not the route that Roger Mullins took when he led the search party. Roger Mullins, after the murder, approached Gary Short's extended family at the funeral and admitted responsibility by saying, quote, "Gary's death was his fault." The grand jury also named a second individual. That second individual was Roger Mullins' brother, David Mullins. Now, David Mullins was at the time an investigator for the Wise County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Bill Kelly. Mullins, being an investigator, had access to the crime scene, to some of the evidence, and the investigation in this case. So specifically, the grand jury found that David Mullins hampered the investigation from the very beginning and, quote, "in the opinion of the jury, committed perjury in his testimony to the jury." Although the grand jury issued these findings, the grand jury did not issue indictments, perhaps because of the complicated facts of the case, the passage of time, and in the words of the grand jury itself, the hampering of the investigation by Roger Mullins' brother, David. Both Roger Mullins and David Mullins are deceased. At this late stage, we commend the investigation and the work of the Virginia State Police, Wise County Sheriff Ronnie Oakes, and his well-trained officers. Investigating this case has been their top priority for over 28 years. I'm so thankful to join so many of you here today, and specifically the family, to honor their wishes and release the grand jury findings and open them for the first time for public inspection. You've been presented with a copy of those findings, and you can review them on your own. While this is not the justice that we usually strive toward, the death of both individuals in this case forecloses the possibility of a prosecution. So today, our goal is about bringing healing and closure for this family. And today's announcement does that. In conclusion, I want to say that today's announcement wouldn't have been possible without the efforts of former Commonwealth's Attorney Ron Elkins and his team, who convened the 2009 Special Grand Jury and the 2012 Special Grand Jury. I want to thank the law enforcement officers, again, whose efforts, had it not been, this day would not be possible, who've always worked tirelessly on this case from the very beginning. And I want to point out all the other Commonwealth's attorneys as well, who throughout the 28 years have dedicated significant resources and heartache to this matter. Before today's event, I spoke with many of them, and I know that they are thankful for closure as well. And then finally, I want to thank my prosecution team, Ken and Josh, and the others in my office who couldn't be here today, who are actually in court prosecuting other cases, who continue to fight to make sure that Wise County and the city of Norton remains a safe place to live, work, and raise their families as well. Most of all, and most importantly, we want to recognize and thank the family of Gary Shore, who've shown a rare determination for 28 years. Amidst personal tragedy and great heartache, they've remained steadfast and strong to see this case through and to see that justice was done. And I think today's announcement does that. Their dedication and everyone else here today has led to this moment and led to our ability to bring this finality and closure. So thank you so much for being here to join with us in that. Now at this time, I'm going to ask Major Grant Kilgore to come up to the podium and read a statement from Sheriff Ronnie Oakes, who again regrets that he can't be here today. Thank you.
Good morning. The statement from Sheriff Oakes is this is a short statement, and he regrets that he couldn't be here today. He says, "I am thankful to join the Short family and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for this announcement. The family has endured so much heartache, and they deserve closure and comfort. So many members of our law enforcement, both active and retired from the Virginia State Police and the Wise County Sheriff's Office, have tirelessly worked on this case, hoping to bring it to a successful closure. I extend my sincere gratitude to all those who have worked so hard and, just as importantly, cared so much. I'm extremely proud of the members of my department who have worked hand in hand with Mr. SLemp and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the Commonwealth attorneys who came before him, all dedicated to justice."
Thank you. Thank you, Major Kilgore. And at this time, I want to ask that you join me in welcoming the family of Gary Shore, specifically his daughter, Teresa Caudell.
Just have a brief statement to make on behalf of the family. May the 20th, 1988 was undoubtedly the saddest day of our lives. It was the day that Dad was lured to a remote area and shot by a man hiding behind the hunting line, murdered by a man who was supposed to be his friend. That was 28 years, 4 months, and 28 days ago. Although our efforts did not result in bringing his murderer to trial, this day is an important step in our healing process. It is a form of resolution and of justice. On behalf of our family, Rose Bothas, Gary Rusty Short Jr., his wife Paula, and their son Josh, my children and grandchildren, Christina Taylor, Jesse and Jeremy O'Quinn, Christian and Cameron Taylor, and the many other family members, friends, and supporters, I would like to extend our thanks to Chuck SLemp and Josh Newberry, Ken Lammers, and other members of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, past and present, and to the many other investigators and reporters who worked to seek justice for Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, for those heartfelt comments. Again, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and your family. I regret that it's under these circumstances that we've come together. I only wish it had been different circumstances. Your family, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, your family will always be in my thoughts and prayers. And I'm just so thankful that we could be together here for this important day for you. Thank you for being here. And for the law enforcement folks who are here, I see so many from the very beginning who were part of this case. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your dedication. And we couldn't be here today without you all. Thank you. They've worked long and hard, folks, for this. It's an important day for them. And finally, and this I think needs to be said, and this is an important thing for me personally and for the family I know this, and that is, as media reporters, you guys don't get a lot of thanks sometimes. And we want to thank you, the reporters and the media who've always had this case as a priority in your reporting, in your news coverage, in the stories, in social media. You've helped us make sure that this story remained in our forefront, in our minds, and helped us call public attention. When we wanted a public service announcement for folks to call in and report if you knew anything, y'all were always willing to do that. And we want to thank you all for being here today and for your part in this. As you know, as you can tell, this is an emotional day for a lot of us. And a lot of these investigators have seen the family again today. It's almost like a reunion, and they've not seen each other in many, many years. And so at this time, the formal part of the press conference and the announcement is going to be concluded. And I'm going to ask the officers and the family to exit the room. They're going to go to a private room where they can have just a moment to be together, to cry together, to hug one another and share just a private moment. And so if you all will, just respect their privacy for just a few moments. Thank you so much. And then hang tight with me just a second. There's a couple folks from my office who are going to hang back for a few minutes with you. I've got, well, Joni's already gone. I was going to introduce you to our victim advocate, Joni Coleman, who's with the family right now. And this is Renessa Jesse, our outreach director, who's here with us as well. If you will give us just a few moments, I know that many of you want to probably speak privately with me and with the family. And I know some of them are very willing to do that. But they want to try to compose themselves for a few minutes beforehand. And we'll come right back out. If you can wait around, we'd appreciate it. If you can't, I understand.
One question on the family.
Sure, yeah.
Does anyone have an idea of the motive? Why he would have wanted to kill?
There are, and that's a good question, Stephen. There are theories, many theories, and in our thorough review of the records, we we come to the conclusion that the grand jury's findings are supported by evidence. The grand jury specifically did not find that there was a motive, and so I'm reluctant to comment as to what we believe might happen. The grand jury didn't have findings as far as that goes. All right, thank you all. I'll be right back here in just a few moments, and if you can hang around, I appreciate it.
And if everyone's okay with that.
If that's okay. Come right here.
I'm not sure everybody's names was said.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I know Rusty, your brother.
Right.
What's his last name?
Paula,
And then your mother, Rose.
Rose.
Her.
husband Harold,
And last name?
Balthus, Balthis,
And then Tracy.
Tracy.
What's your last name?
Caudell, Caudell.
Sorry, get that part out of the way.
Good.
This right here, so then you will be weighted down with all of these because they can get pretty heavy. Keith, do you want me to just put it on this thing or do you want it on her? Do you think
That's fine, it worked great for
Okay.
him. Just pull it forward if you don't.
Look at this all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me get Josh or Ken just to.
Okay.
And, let's see, it's Steve. So we're going, yes.
Is everyone on?
Ready?
Okay, Teresa, let's just get you to say and spell your first and last name so we know that we have it right.
Okay, it's Teresa Caudell, Teresa Caudell.
I guess I'll go. Teresa, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, I've talked to you guys before, and we heard out of your comments that this is a very important day for your family. Can you give us any kind of idea of what you're feeling right now?
It's probably the most mixed array of emotions I've ever felt. Satisfaction, I'm happy, I'm sad. It brings back a lot of memories through the years. But I guess most of all, our sense of some sort of accomplishment, that we've persevered and, you know, it's come to this day. It is a form of resolution of justice. It's the most that we can hope for. It's for a dad, you know, for the family.
And we learned in this press conference today that at one point you had said something about Roger making some comments that made you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Was these names that you see here, were they ever a surprise to you in the midst of this investigation?
No, it's, sometimes you can sense things about individuals and it's more of a, versus seeing things or that person saying something to you, it's feelings. And I just sensed from him that there was a change in him, something wasn't right. Couldn't put my finger on it exactly, didn't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but it, you know, the conclusion of it was yes, you know, he had some sort of anger and resentment against my dad, you know, and, you know, he killed him.
Tell us about your dad. What was he like?
Dad was a complex individual, but he was pretty introverted. He loved baseball. He loved working with the youth. He was an avid hunter, fisherman. He loved the woods. That was his place to get away, solitude, and he loved his family so much. He was a very family-oriented person. And I can remember him saying one time that he's most content when the family is all together. And being a mother and a grandmother now, I know exactly what he meant. He's greatly missed.
And it's you and your brother?
Yes.
How old were you all?
When Dad was killed, I was 27 and my brother was 25.
That's a long time to go, 28 years.
It is.
I know we've asked, you know, how it feels now, but just kind of
we missed out on so many things, you know. And Dad was, in some ways, the biggest kid at Christmas. And so, obviously, when the first Christmas or the first Father's Day, first holidays and things roll around, those were extremely difficult. And, you know, they still remain difficult because although this day has happened, you know, we're going to miss Dad for the rest of our lives, and we're going to be missing out on a lot of the things that, you know, he would be here for. So our grieving process will continue, but this is just, it's something that needed to happen for us to be able to heal even more.
Did you ever think today would come?
I just wasn't going to give up until it did come. I guess there's times when I felt discouraged, but I've always had an encourager somewhere, you know, and I was just determined that I was just going to do whatever it took. I mean, I could be a granny and I was still going to be working, you know, hard to see, you know, it come to this point. And Chuck, when he came into office, I was kind of hard on him. You know, I'm like, I heard a lot of good things about you, and I want you working on this. And he did.
I mean, we know you guys have gone to law enforcement and have worked actively over these 28 years.
Right.
What kind of prompted maybe this move in the investigation that maybe we could unseal this indictment and see this followed through?
Well, with the death of Roger and then the death of David, in my mind, the two suspects, you know, in this case, I really didn't know if we could go forward because I have actually pleaded for anybody with information throughout the years to come forward. And it's when I talked to Chuck and we discussed it, and you know, he asked what we wanted to do, and I told him I would like for those records to be unsealed.
I think that makes
Anything else you want to say?
I appreciate the efforts everybody has made, and it's a job to you all to report this. It's his job, investigators' jobs. But we have formed a bond with you all throughout the years. And although it's your job, it's personal to us. And we really appreciate everything that you all have done because you all are responsible partly for this also.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other specific questions, or we can talk about any other part of the investigation?
Yeah, Chuck, I was going to ask what it takes to unseal an indictment like this. What process did you have to go through to make that happen?
Well, first, the Virginia Code specifies that the findings, the evidence of a grand jury are specifically sealed unless a circuit court judge finds there's good cause to unseal it. And so what we did first and foremost was we looked through the records, we looked through the file to see, did we leave any stone unturned? After we were fairly convinced and our prosecution team worked together to make sure that we were on the same team, on the same page, and ready to move forward with it, the next thing was to file a motion setting forth the facts of exactly what we believe happened and why we're asking now to unseal it. And the biggest of those is the request of the family, and referencing the family's request for closure and justice in the case through the form of unsealing these findings. And so we went and approached the court, we filed a motion, we had a hearing, and the judge agreed and granted our motion to unseal it. And the judge entered that order last Friday. So we actually provided in the press packet a copy of our motion that's been filed. We also included a copy of our order and then the findings themselves.
Do you think that the fact that the two suspects in this case were deceased played a role in that, in unsealing that?
Perhaps some. I think the biggest thing that played a role is that, you know, this is a 28-year investigation that has come to this point in which we have exhausted the resources and time and efforts of each individual I mean, we're dedicated to making sure justice is done, but we have reached a pinnacle, I guess, of our investigation that's come to this stage for this moment. And so it just seemed like the culmination of everything, the investigations, the efforts, everything came together to this point to say that this was the right time to do this.
Do you know how old, or how long ago both of the Mullins
Sure.
passed away?
I do. David Mullins passed away earlier this year, 2016. Roger Mullins passed away in 2011.
And are the Mullins family members aware that you're announcing this today?
We have not announced this to any other individuals other than as we did with the press. We specifically spoke to the Short family, the family of the victim. However, at this stage, I guess they're going to find out with the rest of us here.
And so, you said this was your last cold case in Mullins?
Sure.
Cases in Mullins?
As far as I know, there's no other cold cases. Now, we're dedicated to making sure that we don't leave any unsolved crime in Wise County. And we're working together closely, as we promised to do, with the Sheriff's Department, Virginia State Police, and other law enforcement agencies to make sure that we protect the community. And so if other cases are out there that are not ones that we know about, then we encourage folks to come forward and let us know so we can start dedicating resources and efforts towards them. As far as we know, it's been reported that this is the coldest of cold cases, that this is the only unsolved murder in Wise County, or has been until now. And we're thankful that we can bring this matter to a conclusion and a resolution. Others? Good. Well, thank you all again. Really appreciate it. If y'all have follow-up, feel free to email or call.
I have a
Yeah.
couple of questions.